we're going to talk about cryptocurrency today, and what prompted this was actually something that happened to Keith a few weeks ago, where he had some problems with his graphics card. He wasn't able to uh, join us on a show, and he got aggravated when he found out that he couldn't get a card to replace his old broken card because all the cards were being purchased for cryptocurrency mining. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, that's a personal tie, and that's part of it. I did finally get a card. I only had to pay 150% of what I really should have had to pay for it in a normal world, and I feel good about that. I actually I bought a new card from Office Depot, and they were, yeah, a lot of the big box retailers are being careful how much they mark these things up. Where the prices are really out of sight is on eBay. Like right now, the one on the screen is going is that's an active auction. If I checked it today, it probably won't go up till Friday, just before it closes. And I'm not sure what's going on with the market right now, but yeah, new video cards are out of stock. They're very hard to find, and if you can find them, you have to pay a premium price no matter where you get it. And the reason is they're being used by crypto miners. Yeah, okay, the card I'm using right now in the computer, it's participating in this Zoom call here or our show. It's a what was I going to say? It's oh yeah, it's like $500
Yeah.
new, and
Wow.
I had to pay 600 for it, over
Yep.
600.
So this is like one of the side effects of this whole industry, but it goes far deeper than that. There is various other implications, and we'll be delving into those and what crypto all means. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the news. Some of it is confusing, some of it is inaccurate, some of it is alarming. And so we're gonna try and make some order in all of this mess. So let's talk about what what how cryptocurrency came about and what's the idea behind it and so forth.
Yeah, let's do that. The good slide there. I compare it to the tulip mania back in the 1600s as well. What happened was somebody, you'll help me with the names and all this, Amos, but
Yes.
there was something going on where somebody tried to start a currency, and the government shut them down right away. And then this Japanese guy came out with a white paper and started Bitcoin, and things have not been really the same since.
Yeah, and we don't know for sure that he was Japanese, but his acronym is Satoshi Nakamoto, which lends us to think that he might be, or at least in origin, maybe he's Hawaiian, who knows. But there's been a shroud of mystery around it, and we will talk about this in a minute. But first, what is cryptocurrency and what is a blockchain? Keith, what can you
Right.
say about
Yeah.
this?
Good. Well, let's get right into it. You can't get very far into cryptocurrency without having to find out what a blockchain is, because all cryptocurrency is based on the idea that there's a ledger, or there is a record out there somewhere that everybody can go to see what money's been spent by whom and by for what, and by all this. And it's invasion of privacy, right? But that's not the point. The point is that it's a ledger. And the way I like to understand it is to compare it to an old plantation in the deep south, or a company town where you've got a economic system going on where there really isn't any money. It's all kept track of in ledgers, and it's all imaginary money. It's kind of cyber money, but without the internet. And so to me, this what's happening now with cryptocurrency is an extension of that idea. One thing, I dug into it. I wanted to find out what a blockchain was, and we're going to get into it. I've even made one of my own to help me understand it. By doing that, it was heighten my awareness, and I was able to learn faster. And And well, here we have here we have sharecroppers. So after the Civil War, the plantations, they had freed slaves, but the slaves were bound to the land. They couldn't leave the land because they had debts to pay, it's all kept track by the ledger man. And it's all an organized system to keep people perpetually in debt, and it basically enslaved them. And one of the things that my personal thing is, and we'll get into this more, is that I kind of see this as the same thing. Now, a lot of proponents are going to claim that it frees us, it decentralizes money and so on. I'm going to, I won't dominate the conversation there, but I'll have my I'll have my say in that for sure, because I don't see it that way. Anyway, so that's where the roots come from, and all the blockchain, it really is. It's you've got to have a way up on the internet to have a ledger that you can look at and everybody can know it's not been tampered with. And that's half of understanding cryptocurrency right there. The other half is real simple, is that, okay, you do have all this fancy ledger and these mathematical tricks, and we're going to look at some of those so that you can actually do this. The other thing is having it up on the net, because if you have a ledger and it's in every library, like say you had, you were going to, take some book and like 1984 George Orwell, and you're going to, take all the pages and put them in a dust jacket for War and Peace. Well, and you're going to convince everybody that's going to, that's the actual book, or, you're going to forge it. Well, you'd have to go to every library in the country. And of course, we know that wouldn't be enough because there's online references and all that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, there's two aspects to the security. There's the actual mechanisms, the actual mechanics of the cryptocurrency. Then there's just the simple fact that it's up there on the net, and somehow that makes it safe. It kind of does, but depends what we define as safe, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, all it is a way to make decentralized bookkeeping of assets, or actually transactions. It's not really following assets as much as transactions. So if you've received a payment or you're delivering a payment, it's all being coded into this what's called a blockchain. It's a long chain of transactions, and it cannot be changed. If it's changed anywhere after it's been sealed, it's falsifiable. So in other words, you can easily determine by doing some math on your end that someone has messed with the ledger. So the ledger is not kept at a particular bank or in a centralized location. It's distributed on digital wallets, on your computer, on some sites. It's all over the place, but essentially there's this a way to confirm the reality without having to trust on any particular entity.
Right. And one of the things there is it's called a double spending problem. So
Yes.
one thing you have to do in the cryptocurrency is make sure you set it up so money can only be spent one time. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And that's a big deal. And maybe we'll get back to that. But if you solve all those things and you have an online ledger, then you could make it legal tender, for all debts, public and private. And in fact, El Salvador is doing that right now. And that's what it is. And some people think it's the most wonderful thing. I'm not so sure. Well, actually, I am sure. I think not, but I'm being nice. Okay.
So let's get back into the history of cryptocurrency. So basically, as I mentioned, a guy by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto is considered the father of cryptocurrency. He's the first guy who launched Bitcoin, and he's initially created a little bit of a Bitcoin for himself, which is still his. But nobody really knows who this mysterious person was, and nobody stepped forwards. The only thing that has occurred is that at some point, a gentleman by the name of Dorian Nakamoto was outed as possibly being this mystery guy, and he denied it. He didn't want anything to do with it. But whoever
Smart move.
yeah, but whoever the real Satoshi Nakamoto is still owns 1 million Bitcoin, which is in today's value a tremendous amount of money. There's been so much as in terms of speculation of who this entity was that they even came up with this idea that it was a few big companies that lent letters into the acronym. So SA from Samsung, Toshiba for Toshi, and Naka for Nakamoto, and Moto for Motorola for Moro. So it's kind of hilarious when you think about it, but that's really been the story behind it. So basically, let's talk a little bit about how Bitcoin per se works. And this is particularly Bitcoin. It's not all currencies. All currencies have different types of proof. Proof is just basically a validation of all the transactions in the queue. And we have basically, so we're looking here at blockchain encryption granted on basis of a computing power in terms of what's constituting a proof of work mining. And that means that whoever has the greatest computing power and can come up first with validation of all preceding transactions basically gets the authorship of that particular block. Block is kind of like a page in a ledger, so it's composed of multiple transactions. And basically, once they do that, they get transaction fees and blockchain fees, and that's how they earn value. So because you have such a competition on who is going to come up with the validation first, you have multiple people doing the same exact calculation over and over, guessing what the results are in producing results through a mathematical formula.
I understand it's a two-step process.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, they go through this. What you have to do is you have to take a large block of transactions and do some math on them and make them into a legitimate block. Now, this is no small task, but I think right now it only takes like an hour and a half to do or something like that, or maybe even faster. So you do that first step, and then the miners are in a lottery, and then they do something else, which I don't really understand. And at the end of that, the winner gets to put their block into the chain, and then it goes up on the net and becomes real, whatever that means. You know, it's authentic. Right. You know, right. If somebody's cheating you, there's a record of them cheating you. Sorry, you know, but you know, for good or evil, it's up there. But to get up there, you know, they have to go through this process, and at the end of it, they, you know, they get awarded, like if you do, I think it's like 3 or 4. I forget. It's a small number of Bitcoins that you 12, get for doing this work. Is it 12 now? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. It's right. It started out as 50, and then it went to 25, and it's 12. And over time, they make it lower or something like that for some reason.
Yes, every like with passage of time, the transaction, the blockchain fees are going to reduce, but the transaction fees are going to remain. So,
but since the coin's worth more, it's probably works out better, or could work out better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how they actually get it, and it consumes a massive amount of power, which we'll be getting into. But that's basically it. And like one thing to make these valid blocks, you know, if you have you turn out would have this text, math, whatever, all these ones and zeros, and it has to start out with at least 30 zeros. And how you get those, don't know. But there's all sorts of algorithms that have to be done. And that's one thing that kind of frankly bugged me a little bit, is that when I first heard about this, I thought like this blockchain was going to be like this really attractive, sexy, mathematical idea or something, like, like when I first learned calculus, it was really cool. Wow, this is, you get excited, I get kind of a rush over technical things sometimes, and the thing though is Bitcoin's not, or cyber currencies in general not. They're just a collection of algorithms, many of them inefficient. And what does that have to do with the show? I don't know. Let's move on.
So we have a demonstration for you also regarding that, if you stick around. But basically, as Keith mentioned, it's very computationally heavy, and because of that, and because you have to go through all of the transactions down basically to the initial transaction, the first Satoshi creation of Bitcoin. That means that you have to of course spend a lot of energy. So basically, mining is only affordable to entities with large capital due to the infrastructure costs. You have large companies that run warehouses full of computers, and computers that are dedicated to doing exactly that, just mining. And not everybody can afford to do so. So the idea of decentralizing is kind of countered by the fact that you're getting it into less and less hands of entities that can afford to mine, frankly. So that's kind of backfired. It didn't quite work as Satoshi Nakamoto initially predicted. And now if you were to try and perpetrate a fraud, you would have to basically have more than 51% of the computing power in the world that is validating Bitcoin in order to have 50% chance of succeeding with a fraud. As you can tell, if you're shrinking the pools of people who are doing this, you're increasing the chance of such a fraud, even if it's theoretical at this point in time. But nevertheless,
but that's not the worst of it, though, Amos. I mean, what country are we on now? Right. And during this getting this thing together, we gone through quite a few countries. So I think Netherlands was one, Argentina was one. But anyway, Bitcoin uses as much power as these countries all by themselves. And like if you were reading what I just said in print, you would stop and reread it. So I'll repeat it. Bitcoin uses the same energy as many countries in the world. I mean, we're not talking tiny countries either. I don't consider Argentina tiny, the Netherlands tiny, Denmark. These are Bitcoin is actually using that much power. I was trying to remember everything about when we started the show about my video card, right? So the card I finally wound up getting, it's worth $5 a day. If I want to sign up, to some online service so that my, I'm in their pool and like participating in the mining, supposedly I could have my computer earn $5 a day, and that's just an ordinary, kind of a very nice desktop computer. And I'd rather talk to you guys, but it could be, that's where it is.
Yes,
it's obscene, and that's why I really get in. And anybody who cares about the environment, energy use, the climate catastrophe, emergency, whatever you want to call it, you can't be okay with what's going on with Bitcoin, and that's the worst. But and the arguments made, there are a lot of weak arguments made, like, well, we could use renewable energy and all this. Well, the problem with that is you could actually use a renewable energy instead. The substitution game doesn't work. Right. And also that's just that's just baloney anyway. Nobody's actually doing it, or will they? This isn't controlled by anybody. You can say anything you want. There's no regulation. That's nobody's going to make people like lower their energy use. It's out of control, and it's going to keep going that way. And one thing I found is that All these things are computationally intensive. You can't get around it. And so one of the things people will say is that, well, yeah, Bitcoin's really bad. Sure, it uses the same power as Denmark, but this other coin doesn't. And I think it's just really playing games. And no matter what way you go in this, you're winding up getting into a mathematical arms race against somebody who's trying to forge, or other people you're competing against. And over time, that's just going to up power, I think, in no matter what coin we're talking
I'm not
about.
sure. I disagree on that point. I think that actually there are solutions for the thing, but let's just see. We have a couple of clips regarding proof of work and how Bitcoin stresses the energy issue. So let's watch.
This is a Bitcoin mine hidden deep in the mountains of Sichuan in China. And its rival is on the other side of the planet, at a former factory that used to make denim for Levi's.
You see the transformers lined up on the outside. We have a lot of megawatts.
These two miners make money by providing the massive computing power that's required to process and record a high volume of cryptocurrency transactions. Business was soaring as Bitcoin hit new highs in early 2021.
It's hard to sleep. You go to bed at night and you wake up and you look and holy crap, it's still up.
Last year, China controlled 70% of the global processing power that runs the Bitcoin network. And that means the majority of the cryptocurrency's global transactions are routed through these computers in China and recorded by miners here. So a group of US miners is raising hundreds of millions of dollars to win a larger share of Bitcoin's processing power.
When capitalism in the States decides it wants to get into a market and get into an industry, it moves heavy capital there.
They say their work is also meant to protect Bitcoin. Industry insiders say the Chinese government has already cracked down on some crypto entrepreneurs and could potentially disrupt global trading by asking miners in China to block certain users from making transactions.
It's better for cryptocurrency to be spread around the globe so that Bitcoin cannot be manipulated by any single government.
I think there will be competition. It's more and more human resources, technology resources that are putting into this particular new segment.
The battle over Bitcoin mining will decide who controls the infrastructure that powers the cryptocurrency. Yu Long Liu started mining during the previous Bitcoin rally in 2017. And this is one of the sites he works with that has mined about 8,000 Bitcoins over the past 3 years, generating about $28 million in revenue over that time period. Miners need cheap electricity, which is abundant in some parts of China, thanks to dams and coal power plants that were built by the state in the past decade. That electricity then powers fast machines that are necessary to solve mathematical problems in order to eventually mint new coins. China is home to the vast majority of mining equipment production, and so miners like Liu always have speedy access to the best technology, like this cooling system. But the industry in China lives with uncertainty. Liu asks to keep the location of the site a secret because he says he's not sure if the government will crack down one day. While mining itself isn't illegal, virtual currency trading and crypto exchanges are banned in China because they're seen as risky to the country's financial system. In the past few months, Bitcoin industry insiders have said that Beijing accused some Chinese miners of money laundering and froze their credit cards, making it difficult for miners to pay operating costs. The Chinese government did not respond to a request for comment. So to help miners develop their business despite the risks, Liu offers loans so miners don't need to go through Chinese banks. His company Bauble Finance lends cryptocurrencies to about 300 miners, including the owners of this site.
So that they can purchase more equipment at a lower cost, and then maintaining the machine itself, including repairs.
And Chinese miners are now facing growing competition from overseas.
In the United States, we have massive infrastructure, power infrastructure, and building infrastructure that's already been built out, and we can convert facilities into large data mining facilities.
Russell Can is an American miner who scouts the U.S. for abandoned factories and converts them into mining facilities. His goal? Raise cash to develop industrial-scale mining in the U.S., where until a few years ago, most miners ran small DIY operations.
This is my housing for my computers so that the heat is vented outside.
So Core Scientific has built a team with former executives from Microsoft and MySpace and put together an ambitious business plan.
We have Ernst & Young audited financials. We have a strong balance sheet. We check a lot of boxes for institutional investors that a Chinese miner does not check.
The strategy worked. In the past 2 years, the company has raised $95 million and secured a $20 million loan to install mining rigs in facilities including a former denim factory in North Carolina and a former carpet factory in Georgia. Core Scientific's power infrastructure can handle the latest mining equipment, which Can says usually consumes approximately 100 megawatt hours of electricity to mine 1 Bitcoin. That's the same amount of electricity used to watch television continuously for about 98 years. And tunnels that were once used to cool the factory are now being used to keep chips from overheating.
We've got the ability to process 200,000 gallons of chilled water through these pipes to keep the temperature in the building down.
Can hopes all this will help him offset a long-running technological disadvantage. He was usually about 4 months behind his Chinese rivals when it came to accessing the latest rigs, and the price tag was sometimes 50% more expensive. Others are using the same playbook as Can, creating corporations that attract the support of institutional investors who then help fund high-tech mining sites. Industry insiders and academics who study mining say that the U.S. efforts can be good for the future of the cryptocurrency because the original goal of Bitcoin was to create a currency that couldn't be controlled by one entity.
The dream was that we would reimagine finance without gatekeepers. And what did we get after 11 years? We got different kind of intermediaries, now mostly nameless, mostly under the covers in China.
Emin Gunsayer runs a blockchain startup and is also an associate professor at Cornell University. He studies the vulnerabilities of cryptocurrencies and says Beijing might intervene in the market.
This is an enormous issue. These miners, they could receive injunctions that compels them to act in a certain way.
One request, he says, could be to ask miners to exclude certain people who want to spend or accept Bitcoins in the network, essentially blocking transactions. This is what Bitcoin academics call censorship, similar to how content and accounts can be blocked on social media platforms in China.
The Chinese government would say that the money at certain addresses must not move, and it compels the Chinese miners to not include certain transactions so they can selectively censor certain users of a blockchain.
The Chinese government did not respond to a request for comment. Bobble Finance says if miners in China are asked by the government to intervene in the network, they would have to comply, but that would slow down their operations and eventually diminish their global processing power. But U.S. miners aren't immune to facing scrutiny from financial regulators at home that have proposed plans to hold the industry to the same standards followed by traditional financial institutions. The more immediate resistance to U.S. miners could come from local communities concerned about the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining.
Bitcoin mining consumes enormous amounts of energy. So all energy that goes to miners is energy that's being directed away from other more useful uses.
Can says nearly half of the electricity used by Core Scientific comes from carbon-free sources. Because China's miners aren't part of a corporate structure like in the U.S., Liu says that they can operate faster and spend less on operating costs.
If you multiply the operational cost, China still has the advantage. China will be on the front of the curve into the future.
2021 is all about expansion, and we've built infrastructure, we've built the software, we've built the team to be a long-term player in this market.
Yeah, so you see how ridiculous this thing is. Now, what these people are using are this device here. It's like a jacked up computer that's specialized to just do floating point calculations. Calculations that are basically used for the purpose of validating. So while a CPU or a computer can do a certain number of validation actions, a graphics card is maybe multiple times more efficient, and this thing is
Well, yeah, there's a reason for
thousands
that,
of times more.
Amos. That's because of the parallel processing.
Yes.
Yeah, specifically NVIDIA cards with GPU processors are the prized ones. And there, what you've got is I believe on the card I have, there are about 2,500 very small computers. Each one is responsible for doing some rendering in a normal video game when in its normal use. It's doing all this high-powered math to make actually build a scene in a video game, which is much more intensive than just playing a video.
Right.
And so here what they're doing is they're repurposing that mathematics. And I'm thinking right now that if we find out how much renewable energy is already in the world, and I'm not even sure that all the renewable energy that's currently being used is enough to support Bitcoin where it is right now.
Right.
I do know that had computers not improved in their computational capacity, and then when Bitcoin was first introduced, computers were only, was it like 2012 or something? I forget, or maybe. Anyway, back when it was introduced, computers had so much power, and if computers had not progressed through the years, virtually all the computing power in the entire world right now would have to be employed just to keep Bitcoin going where it is.
Right. But anyway, but what I was showing is this ASIC device that's being used. This is clearly not something that you have in your house unless you set up to be a miner. So this is not something that is like if you're thinking of it as a democratic institution or democratic means of generating income, it is not.
And ASIC is I believe it's application specific integrated circuit. And
yes.
So there, what it is, it's like a computer chip that's being built for a specific purpose.
Right. And here's another little video that will demonstrate how the proof of work mining is not a good idea.
As interest in Bitcoin soars, Bitcoin mining now consumes some 129 terawatt hours of electricity a year. Compare that to Google's net consumption of a measly 12.4 terawatt hours, and the scale becomes obvious. In terms of emissions, driven by a latter-day gold rush of enterprising nerds gunning great battalions of graphics cards 24/7, Bitcoin's carbon footprint alone is now said to rival that of Argentina. Over the past 2 years, carbon emissions from all that fake mining has grown by some 40 million tons, or the equivalent of 8.9 million cars. Bitcoin is a bigger emitter than American Airlines and is fast catching up with the carbon footprint of the entire federal US government. If you want a British analogy, it's said the energy expended mining Bitcoin in a year could power every kettle in the UK for 27 years.
Yeah, it's a funny analogy, but that's kind of where we are now. Everything we talked about up till now was proof of work methods that are primarily used by Bitcoin. There's also Ethereum and other coins that have used this method, and as we discussed, that those are really plagued by these problems. However, that doesn't apply to all cryptocurrencies. There are cryptocurrencies that are using other proofs. For example, the most popular alternative now is a proof of stake forging. They call it forging instead of mining. It's a minor thing, but it's basically you're not entitled based on your computing power, but rather you put out a stake, a token, amount of money that you put as collateral, and then you're allowed to validate. And that assignment is done pretty much arbitrarily, randomly, and so you don't have millions of computers trying to solve the same exact problem at the speed of light. So it takes this whole thing out of the equations, and as a result, it is a much more efficient efficient means of processing this currency. So
But we
that's,
still have Bitcoin. It's here right now.
we
And,
still have
you know,
Bitcoins, of course, and
yeah,
that has
it's
not been
right now it's consuming power. And we're, you know, just
absolutely.
because we could have something better doesn't make what we're doing okay.
No, but there are alternatives, and people could switch if they wanted to right away. They could switch to a more energy efficient coin. There was, for example, a coin that was produced by the name of Monero that works the work of stake, the proof of stake method, also attributed to Satoshi Nakamoto. Because they found that a paper that is published contained the same exact language that was used in the final filings of Monero as a currency. And this
Funny you
time,
should mention Monero, because you know, certain of people that are into it have actually compared themselves to Christianity, because
yes.
there's some religious aspects to this thing. You know, like, well, okay, one thing I'm going to put out there is
before
that,
you do, I just, and that's our
okay,
next slide. So I just wanted to say this time this Satoshi guy appeared as Nicholas van Saberhagen, if it's the same person. So this whole thing with the controversy is an ongoing thing. But yeah, let's talk about Monero as a religious artifact.
right. You know, and I was just saying that one thing when I've been, you know, watching different people talk about the cryptocurrencies and so on, and most everybody who's on the web is, and they're representing it as being a good thing because they have some kind of financial angle involved in it. And, you know, it gets to be almost a religion, the things they say. And but I want to put out something, you know, as that in that Bitcoin or any of these cyber currencies don't give us anything that we don't already have. We already have a digital currency. You can use a Visa card. You know, I don't see that any cyber currency really gives us anything that we don't already have. But that's me, and other people don't agree with me, and they don't see it that way. And so you get all sorts of people, you know, saying that it's a wonderful thing, decentralize this, and I kind of see it backwards. I kind of see it as like you're sort of, you know, you're putting oppression up in the blockchain for all times, and that you're freezing the way people do business, and you're you know, I mean, cryptocurrency to me, I'm seeing it as a you know, a libertarian's wet dream. I mean, somebody who doesn't like government, who, you know, oh, they love this stuff, you know, because government is always out to get us and they never do anything good. So yes, they shouldn't have the money, you know, even though the money has pictures of presidents on it, and we probably wouldn't, you know, I mean, I would really myself, I don't see that it brings us anything that we don't already have, you know. And these people with almost a religious zeal, you know, they amuse me. And one thing about the comparison to the Christianity thing is you know, easier, you know, getting through the eye of the needle and all that stuff, you know, and yeah, like so if a man can go through a virtual needle, can he tell God to fuck himself? I mean, I'd like to know, you know, because he's a class, you know. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. That's it from Ecclesiastes. There, I said it. Or from Hebrews, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Okay, enough Bible study. I'm not going there. I'm not trying to push any religion or anything. I'm just putting out there that, you know, the idea of money itself is a very complicated issue. And, you know, and just having like a cyber currency show up and act like it's going to basically change the way we all live, and that there's not going to be any resistance from deeply entrenched forces and you know, to me, it's just, I don't believe it.
And
it's amazing.
Let's illustrate what we were talking about by running this video.
Yeah.
Church of Crypto. If you believe in it like I do, as I do, Church of Crypto. Decentralized currency. Decentralized currency was going to free us all. It's going to take us all to the promised land. If you don't think so, check your bank account. Matter of fact, check your bank account because cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is going to take us to the moon. 10,000. 6,000 right now, that's right. But 6,000 right now, it's going to go to 10,000. It's going to go to the moon. It's going to outer space. It's going to go to Jupiter. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be here stuck on Earth? Are you going to be here working the 9 to 5? Are you going to be here wondering whether or not I can make $100 a day? Whether or not I can make $200 a day? Whether or not I can make any money? You know something? Bitcoin takes our wealth back. It takes our wealth back from the banks. If you're stuck in a loan, if you've been divorced, if you had to go to student loan or something, if you had underwater in a house, matter of fact, Bitcoin, if you invested in Bitcoin, earlier, one Bitcoin's worth $6,449.74. That's right, Bitcoin, praise the Lord, is our savior. Thank you, Satoshi Nakamoto, the man who wrote the Bitcoin white paper and shared it with everybody, because Satoshi Nakamoto was about freedom. He was about economic freedom. He's about the enslavement of humanity. He is the savior. Is Satoshi Nakamoto Jesus Christ? I hope so. I really hope so. But anyway, who's to tell? Who's to tell? But this experiment of Bitcoin is taking us to the promised land. It's taking us to freedom. It's taking us to another level of financial freedom. Financial freedom. Praise Satoshi. Praise Satoshi. Praise Satoshi. Praise Satoshi. Praise Satoshi. That's all I have to say is praise Satoshi. You should too. You should know. Just holding on to Bitcoin, you're gonna be winning. Any amount of money you'll be holding on to Bitcoin, you'll be winning. You hold $100. You hold it $1. You hold $1,000. Either way, you're gonna be winning because today Bitcoin's worth $6,449.74. $6,449.74. That's right, Bitcoin is going to the moon, and you get to be on that rocket ship Bitcoin. You don't think this is a joke? Man, they thought this was a joke back in 2009. They thought this was a joke back in 2010. They thought this was a joke in 2012. They said this shit was a fraud in 2017. Thank you, Jamie Dimon. Thank you, Jamie Dimon. Thank you, Jamie Dimon. Oh, thank you, Jamie Dimon. Thank you, Jamie Dimon. I swear. Oh, man. Oh, Lord. 6,000. 6,000. 6,000. Oh, my gosh. 6,000. 6,000. I got money all over the place. I can't do anything with it. Oh, my gosh. Oh, thank you, Satoshi. Thank you, Satoshi. Thank you, Satoshi. Thank you, Satoshi. I got $6,000. I got more than $6,000. I got $6,449. You ain't got nothing. What you mad about, huh? Are you mad? Are you mad? You need to get in the game. Come on, man. Get down. Get down. Get down with Satoshi. Get down with fucking. Get down with Bitcoin. Get down. Get down with Bitcoin. Get down with cryptocurrencies. Because Bitcoin is going to save us. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Amen to that.
Well, that's loony, of course, but that's loony, of course. But there's certainly an element of fetishization of cryptocurrency, and there's been like there's like a couple of hundred of these different currencies, and some of which are just like for no apparent reason out there. There's no reason for them. For example, that little coin you see on the top left with a dog on it, that's a Dodge. And that currency was created in 2 hours by its creator as a joke. Right after
originally by a joke, and then he was contacted by a guy with some hacking skills, and then they made a coin out of it.
Yes.
And that coin has actually been compromised too. There was a huge fraud case involved in that.
Right, but what made it unimaginably profitable was Elon Musk tweeting about it, and it took off, and people made tons of money, whoever was able to get out of it in time. But that's the kind of the ugly side of it is the speculative aspect of currencies, because some people treat it as a stock, and you can make money as stock on it, but it's really more suitable for like long term investment than it is for stock, for like for kind of like
Amos, the thought strikes me that if you don't have a lot going for you, it would be a really hard thing not to believe in something that might make you rich. I mean, this is a perennial problem. It's like poor people spend a lot of money on lottery tickets and rich people don't. Do the math on that one.
Yeah, true.
And people in desperate straits can't make a balanced decision on these things. And who benefits in all this? That's a very good question.
So what's this slide about? Blockchain a solution?
This thing just relates in a tangential way. I was doing work. I ran across Tom Hartman, and this is actually a video from a Seattle town hall meeting. I go to these town hall meetings sometimes, or have in the past. It's a very nice thing in Seattle. It's a tradition of the old meeting hall, where somebody wrote a book. They go to city before the internet, and they give talks and stuff. So here he's talking, and we'll remember as it plays why I put it in here. It definitely relates.
As economic power consolidated, the cotton gin, as I said, was invented just 2 years before 1800, but it really hit the marketplace in a big way around 1815. And so by 1830, this consolidation in the South was well underway. And in every single one of the cotton producing southern states, which was the majority of them, what we saw was the large plantations getting bigger and bigger and bigger, these families getting richer and richer and richer, and all of them turning their eye to politics. They took over their state governments. They were already running a police state. In my first book on the hidden history of guns and the Second Amendment was written the way it was written to protect the slave patrols in Virginia and South Carolina, and Georgia, which were the militias of the day. And so they already had a police state infrastructure, and the South had become a rigidified oligarchy. And they were very upset about the fact that there was still this democracy, a very loud, noisy democracy going on north of the Mason-Dixon line. And it was infecting people in the South. It was causing rebellions. It was causing discontent, across the board among enslaved people and among the poor white people who had been pushed off their farms or lost their farms and had become, the employees of this oligarchy. And so they essentially declared war on us, said, we don't want a democracy in North America. We're going to take you down. And they nearly succeeded. 700,000 people died. But we fought them back, we beat them back, and we defeated them. And we then broke up those giant plantations. One of the largest in Louisiana, Parchment, is now the Louisiana State Prison. One of the largest in Virginia was that of Robert E. Lee's. Robert E. Lee's plantation is now known as Arlington Memorial Cemetery. So we put the oligarchs basically back in a bottle. Then another technological innovation brought about our second confrontation with oligarchy in the United States, which reached a head in 1933. But the second confrontation with oligarchy really began in the 1880s, 1890s with the railroad and steel and oil and coal and just all of these industrial dynamite chemicals, all these industrial processes that produced a new generation of oligarchs, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and the Morgans and the Astors, and on it went, and those oligarchs started getting very politically active, reaching out for control of not just individual states, but the nation as a whole. There was a blip in right after 1901 when McKinley was assassinated and his vice president, Teddy Roosevelt, became president. Roosevelt was a progressive and he tried to take on the oligarchs with the Tillman Act in 1907 that forbade corporate sponsorship of candidates for political office, and by breaking up the big monopolies, a job that was actually the breaking up of Standard Oil was completed by his successor, another progressive Republican, President Taft. But that kind of fell apart with World War I, and then in 1920, an explicit embrace of oligarchy was the campaign slogan of Warren Harding. Warren Harding campaigned on basically two things. His first slogan was called a return to normalcy. The top income tax rate at that point in time, the top bracket, was 91%. It was a remnant of World War I. And Harding said, we're going to drop that down to 25%, which he did when he was elected. His second campaign slogan was more business in government, less government in business. In other words, privatize, deregulate. And he did. And that kicked off the Roaring 20s when the average.
Okay, now it's on me to explain why I brought this in and how it relates to Bitcoin, which I can do. I brought it here because technology. You know, in the early 1800s, the cotton gin was invented, and that set in motion events that would eventually lead to the Civil War. And then Tom Hartman was mentioning, earlier, in the last century, what was going on there. And I wanted to bring out the point that technology, you can say it's neutral if you want, but it's not automatically good. It can bring as much pain and suffering to the world as we think it takes away when we first see it and see it's shiny, wonderful, and great. And I'm relating it to Bitcoin because this is what I personally see Bitcoin as. I don't see that it's giving us anything we don't already have. It's not solving any problems that we really can't already solve, and that there is a fascination with it. There's a certain religious attraction to it. It's hyped beyond belief by people who have something to do with it. And I'm saying nobody is saying, what does it really give us? Where does it really take us? Because as people, we don't question technology. It's really not in us to do so unless we put it there and make a discipline out of it, which is perfectly, you can do it, but our socially, we don't. So, blockchain is, cryptocurrency is here. I'm not saying that it's going to go away. I'm just saying that, it's coming and nobody's going to question it except maybe me here on this show and Amos. And, is this thing really being looked at critically? I don't see it. I see a lot of people pushing it, like Max Kaiser. He was. I saw him on a show a few weeks ago. He's talking it up, and for what? That's the question. But my personal interest is technology. Why is it that people don't question what technology does? We're too easy just to accept it and say it's wonderful.
Yeah, of course we have to do that. But till now we mostly reigned on the idea of cryptocurrency, and we've discussed that. But I'm here to also play the other side and talk a little bit about what does cryptocurrency do. And in essentially the nation state mechanism of monetary policy has been fiat currencies. So basically you have the US dollar, you have the French franc, and so forth, and you have a central bank that then decides when to print money and when to not, based on political or economic factors or reasons. Now, this currency is not the same. They created basically a digital currency that is printing money based on a mathematical formula, not based on governmental decisions. So basically, you could argue that it is much less prone to inflation or.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say it'd have to be neutral at best. I want to say that there's something good in the mathematics that's going too far.
What I'm saying is it's not it's predictable. It is in that sense. It is volatile as a currency. However, it's predictable in terms of the scarcity of the coin, because you know how much will circulate. You know what's going to happen, when money is going to be printed, as opposed to governments that can act quite irrationally in that regard. So you have that. You have the idea of decentralization and the fact that a lot of these transactions are mostly anonymous, I wouldn't say exactly private at this point. There's some coins that are trying to address that aspect so that no one could trace any of your financial activities. And Zcoin, Zcash, and Ghost and some other currencies are such currencies. And the question is whether governments are even going to allow that to happen, because there's a question whether they don't want people to trade with complete anonymity. But mostly when you're trading, you are anonymous, although it can be traced back if somebody really attempted to, in terms of your IP address or whatever. But so you have certain amount of privacy, even if not complete at this point, unless you're using one of these secure currencies. On the whole, I'd say the promise of the coin chain, that is the basic principle behind cryptocurrency, is much more of a promise in terms of other technologies and other spheres, in my opinion, we haven't really seen yet. And this application of these blockchain technology in the cryptocurrency field, in the cryptocurrency spheres, is basically practice for things that are going to completely revolutionize our lives. And let's look at something how it was considered in India. So let's run this video here.
So how can you use blockchain to transform a country, and a country like India? Let me start with agriculture. Look, agriculture, for us to do anything in transforming India, we first have to look at agriculture. Agriculture is 16% of our GDP. 120 million farmers, that's 12 crore farmers, are directly engaged in agriculture. In fact, India has the second highest amount of land under agriculture in the world. But in all these numbers, there's this other number, which is the number that leapt out to me, and this number is 23. 23 is the number of farmers who kill themselves every single day in this country. Every single day. Now, why do they do so? They don't have farm equipment to make yields happen. Even if they own land, the land is very small. You can't do scientific agriculture. You can't get output based on the input that you put in. Even if you own that land, most of the times it's not recorded as theirs. And so you can't get financing for all the inputs that they want. And they go take loans from other people, and they end up killing themselves. Now, how can blockchain help here? Actually, funnily, in multiple ways. For example, as Mr. Mahindra realized a couple years back, the blockchain is ideally suited to create a new Uber. To create a new Uber for tractors without actually an Uber being there. And in fact, we are creating that. And where the costs become much lesser, and smart contracts, provenance, lack of hackability, etc., makes it much easier. In fact, you can go a step further, and blockchain is the ideal technology to create fractional ownership. And so 11 farmers can own one tractor, which is still easier to do. And all the financing bit and all the complications that arise from there can actually be taken care largely by this technology. Land. The governments all over the country are actually digitizing land or trying to digitize land, as you know. The problem is, even if you digitize it, someone can still go hack it, someone can still go change the name, someone can still do whatever they want with it, take ownership. And in fact, if you digitize it, you only know who it belongs to. What you don't know is who it belonged to and what was the provenance of that land, because that's also sometimes very important. Again, blockchain can come in and solve these problems. In fact, Andhra Pradesh has already started doing so in India. They've started moving their agricultural land records to blockchains. And finally, what excites me the most, frankly, is the fact that you can actually use blockchain better than any other technology to do consolidation of these small plots into one larger plot, larger acreage. And so, you can then do the harvesters on that and the tractors on that and inputs on that. And the blockchain can actually take care of whose land, how much input happened where, how much output happened. Smart contracts can actually, move monies, move inputs, outputs. And so there's a massive agricultural transformation which can happen through this technology. Take energy, for example. Energy in a rural context. Now, today, power or electricity for us is a centralized concept. One power plant, power distributed from that power plant. Works in cities very well, doesn't work in villages. It doesn't make economic sense. You have to produce power where you need power. Possible to do. You can use solar, you can use wind, you can use other things. But then the problem is, how do you make it economically viable? There'll be certain houses which will be producing more power, they don't need it. There'll be certain places which will not be producing power. And so if you again use blockchain and a little bit of IoT and link all of these houses with solar panels on them, automatically excess power can be transferred to deficit power. Money from the deficit power guy can be transferred to the excess power guy. Actually, you can use cryptocurrency here. It's an interesting way to think about it. Produce currency, and that currency can actually be used to buy, sell power, can actually be used by people like us in cities to donate power. So, creating these micro small grids, which has been a problem so far. Producing power is not a problem. How you make it economically viable is something that the blockchain can potentially do. It can do many things, but it's, at the top of its hype cycle. It can't do everything.
So
yeah, can't do everything.
It can't do everything, but there's certainly some applications that would make sense that it lends itself to, and I think that that I wouldn't completely poo-poo it. Just on a personal level.
In the sense that technology, as I say, it's neutral, but we have to decide what to do with it.
I agree with
because
that.
If it's useful, it should be used.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to money, that's a different thing. But there is danger in just still giving it mystical properties, because this is fine Indian gentleman. I saw a Netflix show a few days ago, and it was about a couple, and they're a man and wife, been married for 40 years, and they are farmers in rural India, and they're poor. And technology to them is talking to their sons and daughters who are away working in a sugar cane factory, because nobody can make enough money to get by, because the cotton crop got ruined by the monsoon, and no blockchain is going to stop the rain from coming down at the wrong time. So where it can do many things, it can't, Mother Nature, the reality of the physics of the situation, really what really matters at the end of the day. And I don't have a problem with what this man's putting out in that, there may be some uses here. Property, it's very important to document who stole the land first, so everything can be traced back to that first theft. Right. And blockchain could sure help with that. But in terms of money, one thing of just money seems to make a whole lot of decisions in life. It makes us do bad things. It makes us do stupid things. And it's fueling the world, and we're where it's taking us, we don't know. And just blindly having faith in cryptocurrency because it's a technology, you know. Yeah, that's my thing. I just see technology getting us in a lot of trouble. I like it as much as anybody. I'm a proponent of it in the right place. All I'm saying is that it uses me, and I admit it, as much as I use it. You know, it affects me. And we don't spend enough time looking at the like, why did those farmers, kill themselves? It wasn't because they were waiting for blockchain to come along. We know that for sure.
No, but if blockchain can ease some of those issues that they're encountering, then that probably would be a good thing. But another thing that you have to consider is the fact that currently international currency exchanges are basically methods of taxation, because when you're buying and selling currency across and moving monies from one country to another, you're basically being taxed. You're paying not only wiring fees and so forth, but you're paying other the exchange rate differences. And so if you're dealing only with cryptocurrency, you completely override that whole economic structure. And I think that that is why I think that the nation states are going to push back, and they're not going to take this lying down, and they're going to try and take the cryptocurrencies down before they have impact on their bottom line in terms of.
I totally agree with that. Totally.
So we'll see what happens, but it's definitely, to me, as someone who has a global perception of like humanity as one, and the nation states interfering with the good of the universal good of humanity by putting up their own sponsors' preferred agendas. I think that this could provide a blow to that system, to that international system, and I find that actually kind of encouraging. We'll see where that all goes, but that's another aspect of it that nobody's talking about, but exists in the background. And another thing, not cryptocurrencies, but the blockchain in even in a cryptocurrency format power other things. Like, for example, there is something called Library. Library is a platform that basically hosts content. And like video content, and you can like videos or encourage, donate, or whatever.
We are on Odyssey.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, Odyssey. I have an account, and it turns out I have 2.7 coins. I didn't know this.
Congratulations.
I actually have. Yes.
But what has happened recently is that the SEC has tried to meddle with it, because they are saying, well, this is a cryptocurrency. It's a stock in essence, and you don't have the certification, or you don't have the rights to trade in stocks. So they're trying to shut them down, and that they're fighting it back. So you can certainly Google it. Here's a video explaining all of this.
And the SEC has dealt another blow to those in the cryptocurrency community.
The SEC is devoting a significant amount of resources to this crackdown.
The SEC is going after crypto. Last month, the former SEC chair said that
there'll be a review of all of the cryptocurrencies.
And that review has well and truly begun. They've targeted Ripple, Kik, Telegram, and now they're going after Library, a decentralized video platform. They've been saying the crypto tokens on these platforms are securities, financial contracts similar to stocks, and that they're in big trouble for selling them without being registered. If the SEC's aggressive complaint against LBRY holds up in court, just about any crypto token, even any crypto trade, could be targeted by the SEC as unregistered. This would put the entire blockchain industry at risk.
It's supposed to be a free country where we're able to pursue ideas.
Bruce Fenton is a big investor in crypto startups. He follows the rules closely.
One of the things that breaks my heart is when I have young startup founders, and very early in the process, they'll talk to somebody, especially a lawyer will say, "Ooh, you know, that's probably a violation of the rules."
When I have people coming into my office and they want to do a token, I tell them, listen, we have laws regarding the sale of investment instruments.
Preston Byrne is a lawyer who deals with crypto law.
It's usually pretty clear as a lawyer. By the end of the initial phone call, I know whether something is going to be kosher or not, and 9 times out of 10, it's not.
The lawyers will say either it can't be done or it can be done and it's going to cost millions of dollars.
LBRY says that they've spent 3 years, over $1 million, and thousands of hours of team members' time on this case so far.
It just wipes out a whole bunch of small startups.
I hope it won't wipe out LBRY. I use LBRY. Maybe you're even watching this video on Odyssey.com, a YouTube alternative built on the LBRY platform. The token in question is LBRY's LBC token, which stands for LBRY credits. To explain how LBRY's LBC token works, well, basically you pay LBC to post a video, people can tip you in LBC, you can lend LBC to other videos to give them more visibility, and you get rewards in LBC watching content. It's the backbone of the whole LBRY protocol, and without it, people couldn't use the network. Despite their practical use, the SEC claims that LBRY credits are stock-like securities that people buy to make a profit rather than for use. Hey, SEC, I'm using LBC right now to tip content creators on the platform. But the SEC's position is that if something has value and someone buys it and the market sets the price, then it's an investment contract and hence a security. I wonder what that makes Beanie Babies, artwork, Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards. People buy all of those things hoping the price would go up. LBRY says that they've never advertised LBC as an investment. It's a utility token to be used on the platform, just like you use a Chuck E. Cheese token at Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese, when you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
What makes a Chuck E. Cheese token fine, but a Chuck E. Cheese cryptocurrency a security? Another thing outlined under the SEC's new standard is that if the blockchain is being actively developed, then the tokens on that platform are considered a security. Well, I don't know of any tech platform that isn't being actively developed. All crypto besides Bitcoin could be SEC targets now. Some already are.
Some that would say cryptocurrency is a commodity, some would say it's a currency, others would say it's a property. And then you also have some that say some cryptocurrencies are securities.
Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse was also sued by the SEC.
Regulation shouldn't be a guessing game.
As it stands, the definition of cryptocurrency changes depending on which government department you're asking.
This is fine.
LBRY said in a post yesterday that they repeatedly asked the SEC how to run the company legally. The SEC said that they could not tell them, and they could only tell them that they were breaking the law. They also said that the SEC insists on conducting business over the phone and won't put anything in writing. This uncertainty makes it really difficult for many crypto businesses to operate.
We've seen a lot of successful startups who've decided to leave our shores or never even start here because the regulations are so burdensome.
And when these companies go offshore, US customers lie and say that they're not American just so that they can still get access to these things.
It should say something to the people making these decisions when you see so much effort working at trying to avoid the regulations, whether it's people logging in with VPNs, companies barring the United States, companies going to lawyers and spending millions of dollars trying to figure out how to not have the regulations govern them or how to not be a security. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. It's billions and billions and billions of dollars and thousands of people this time being wasted.
Right, it is. The big case deciding crypto freedom right now surrounds the LBRY token. LBRY Inc. made the mistake of being an American company, so now they're being sued by the SEC. The fact is, despite LBRY being used by millions of people, not a single person LBRY is aware of has alleged harm or damage as a result of purchasing LBRY credits. So where is the victim here? Blockchain tech has created an enormous number of jobs and helped redistribute power in an increasingly centralized world. But the entire industry is at risk. The outcome of this library case will set precedent for all crypto tokens.
Yeah, so right now there's a tug of war with all these different applications, and if it infuriates you, check it out. Go to Odyssey, vote, sign a petition. But it is kind of disturbing that the SEC would in effect.
It seems strange to me. Yeah, I mean, well, hey, if it's, to me, it should be real simple. Like if you've got a cryptocurrency or anything like that, can you turn library, can you turn that into actual cash? Can you go to an exchange and convert it? You know, because if you can convert it into real money, well, yeah, then there's no issue. But if it's like being used to promote videos, document videos, and, you know, basically trading stamps among club members at a website, you know, that's a totally different thing, and it shouldn't be confused with money.
Well,
and so
I think,
Amos,
I
this
think,
is getting to your
yeah.
your point, where, you know, if it's their legitimate values, you know, it's got legitimate uses, they should be allowed. It's only, in my mind, you just keep it away from money.
Well, you can't keep it away from money. It's essentially tied into money, and if you're using this coin to monetize on the site, that's comparable to YouTube's monetizing, and if somebody donates you money, you should be able to convert it. So I don't know if that's...
Then you pay your taxes. So what's the problem?
Correct. That's but they're still going after those entities, and in the case of Library and Odyssey, it's disturbing because it has the effect of suppressing independent content. Which is not sometimes not being shared completely on other platforms due to their dislike of the material. For example, YouTube will not allow most of our videos, because they have political content. They will not allow us to monetize them in any way, and it's basically you know, we're doing it for free. But if that was our bread and butter, we would have a problem. So that's why being on Odyssey may be much more important to some content generations than others, and this is kind of interfering with that. So just 2 cents about that. Now, did you want to go into the examples with, just for the tech savvy guys among you, or the techie?
Oh yeah, you know, and like I say, so here I am, you know, trying to learn about this stuff and learning about blockchain, and I'm finding out what it is, and I said, well, you know, why don't I try to make one and see, just kind of play around with it and see if that doesn't, you know, help me get to understanding some of it. And so I did, and yes, it did. And so here, this slide is, you can hardly read it, so I'll kind of read it out loud. That very top line is going to be a potential block. All it is right now, it's text. It could be anything at all. So what I have in there, I have a string in front of which looks like garbage characters. I'll come back to that. Right now, we'll skip it. Then I have the date, an account number. I spent some money on groceries, gas. Oh, I sold something on eBay, so I got a positive credit. Then I've got a balance. And then I wanted a great piece of literature to document in this thing. So I said, money is a great servant and a bad master. Okay. Now, a block in a blockchain, you know, it's part of a chain, but what it is, right? It's some way we can look at it and we can know that this thing's real, that this thing's authentic. And I mean, it's only defining reality any way we want it, by whatever. All we can really say is that this block has valid content. And if we know that it has valid content, then we can make a money out of it. Then we can make a ledger out of it and all that. So getting over on the right there, you know, every letter has got a computer code in it. That's the ones and zeros it's made out of. And since I'm into such things, I know about these things. I know that one of the things that's done when you transmit a message is you can run a mathematical procedure on it, and you get a number, right? So if you're downloading something and you check and your number is the same, then whatever you downloaded didn't have any mistakes in it. And so I thought, okay, well, could I do something like that if I actually, whatever that mathematical procedure produced, if I could take that number and stick it back in the block and run it again and see, and if I ever got the same number out, then I kind of would have the self-documenting block. And so I tried it, and the first time I tried it didn't work. Oh, okay. And then I made a little tweak to the program, and then I found out it worked, and it worked out better than I thought it would. And then I started having fun with it. So that in the middle there is a block, but now it's been transformed. And in the front of it, it's got 3 numbers, 02, 1A, and 23. Now, those are arbitrary because they come from a previous block. I'm assuming a block exists, or I made a parent block. The details on that aren't important. The point is, once I made up the numbers, I couldn't change them. So I made those 3 numbers up. Then there's a particular mathematical procedure called CRC-CCITT that's run on messages to look for, problems in the transmission, potential, to detect failures in transmission. So I was able to run that. And so what I did was I made up 3 numbers. I actually made up 2. Those are the part of the CS, are a part of the procedure. And it turned out I needed an extra number. And that was the kind of the thing I mentioned before. It didn't work the first time, but then it worked even better when I did this thing. So anyway, so I guessed these 3 numbers. Then I ran this mathematical procedure using computer, of course. We're going to all see all this work. And then I got a number. And it turned out, because I added a whole character, which is 8 bits, that pretty much you could satisfy their criteria of making a valid block maybe once every 300 to 1,000 guesses, which is kind of neat. And so, so now I have a block that is very difficult to forge, because if you make any payment out of it, you've got to redo the block, which is the first comparable to Bitcoin. And that's the first part where they're coming up with a valid block. So you run this procedure through it a few hundred times, and finally you mine a valid block. Okay. And now then that valid block, you could compare it to other ones like that other people have produced. And this is very much like what Bitcoin does too. This is the second part of it. But my criteria is that these numbers, these last 2 are the ones that are part of the mathematical procedure. But remember, I guessed all 3. So all 3 of them together make a number. And so then I find that I decided that the lowest number will be the valid block. And if you come up with another block that you say it belongs to this chain, that belongs to these 3 numbers in the front, you have to come up with the same number, and it's going to have to meet this criteria. And you're going to have to come up with a forgery that's virtually impossible to come up with. I have a feeling it's in the order of 1 chance in the number of atoms in the universe or something like that. And this is just from a very simple 16-bit type thing where everything can be exhaustively worked out. In fact, that last statement I say about the number of atoms in the universe, you kind of forget that in a sense, because I dealt with a very small number, and there's only like 65,000 numbers that could come up in the guesses. So actually I could exhaustively prove everything, which a real blockchain you couldn't do, because there you're talking about mathematical complexity. It's far more than I'm able to program. So so that's this slide is I made this to introduce it. I hope I've done that. Again, ask me any questions, Amos, if it needs clarification. Oh, this slide here. This is the actual this schematic diagram comes from a microchip, and it's a computer on chip, and each computer on chip comes with a book. It's called a data sheet, but they're never that short. They're entire books, and they're hardly ever printed anymore either. They're all online. And in this, there's a piece of hardware. So as a message is coming in and it's being received by this computer, it can actually run this this procedure using hardware to do exactly what you'll be seeing that I did. And so what happens is you've got a seed register, like basically you start from zero. You start from an initial state. So you have to load that. And then you have this polynomial register up here. That has to do with the particular algorithm, and you can make different ones, and certain ones work better at different kinds of noise detecting and so on. We don't have to worry about that. All we had to know, is that this is where there's a magic number that's part of the mathematical procedure goes in on top. And then what happens is the message comes in on the right and gets pushed in and cycled around. And then when you're all done, you give it some extra clock cycles, and it gets moved out to the seed register. Then you can read it, find out what was in there. And so basically, every time I guess my message, something like this was going on in my computer, and it did it, maybe 100 times a second. It just, incredible. It found. We'll see how fast it's finding blocks in the next slide, I think. Oh, not the next slide. The next slide is to tell you, so since I programmed this, anybody who does any programming knows about GitHub. And that's where guys that do programming go, and they can download and look at somebody else's code. So come back to this slide if you actually want to go and look at the code that I wrote to do all this. And what I did was I wrote a Windows application that uses what's called the SDL library. It's platform independent. It's not part of Windows or Microsoft or anything like that. And it's used by people who write game programs. And then I use an external library to write some C code to make all this happen. And like I say, if you go to Amateur Blockchain Experiment on GitHub, you'll find it, and then you can read there's a README file there. Okay, so now we're actually going to see it run. And before we do, let's just, well, you can go ahead and see it. I can keep talking through it. I think that was the plan, because otherwise we're just watching numbers. And I didn't make it too long, but I made it long enough so I could maybe explain what's going on a little bit. So there's the block that, the actual text that we're going to mine. And that part on the end is going to be some garbage. I'll point at the next block. We won't get into that. It's just the way the blocks talk to each other. Okay, now this in the yellow there, you see a number, and it's hard to read but it's changing. So right now we're at it should just change to AD06 at the end, and the first part is 06. That part won't change. Any of these three numbers, like I say, I'm picking three numbers, and every time it picks three numbers that work, it's being thrown up on the screen there. So these are actually matching blocks, and between each one is actually running hundreds of times and failing. And so you're only seeing the successes, but I have a very fast computer. And like I say, this is only a 16-bit calculation. So it's really cranking out, and it's hitting, it's able to do a run about once a millisecond. And so it's finding, numbers. Now, what's going to happen is this. I have to let it run a really long time. This is good music. I like the music.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So it's just cranking away. And I went out and then did some yard work and worked in the garden. I came back in and it was still working. But now you see over on the far right here, these numbers are all over 1,000 because it's found each block multiple times. And so by letting it run so long, without an exhaustive mathematical proof procedure, which could be done, this is just, I have virtually found every possibility because there's only 65,000. Actually, with the extra byte I put in, I made it about there's 1 in 16 million possibilities. And the one that right there that I highlighted is the 2206 number. And that is the block that, you're going to have to beat. You're going to have to find a lower number. And it's got to produce that number as its lowest number. That's what really makes it hard to do. And so it was just fun to play around with. And yeah, I could actually make something practical and document that, yeah, this is documented. This is certified as being an official member of my blockchain can't be forged. Doesn't make my blockchain, the truth of anything I put in it, any more true or false. It just means that what I have in there is valid with reference to the blockchain. And all that hocus pocus is what's behind cyber currency,
Yeah. And if that went over your head, don't worry about it. It's just a demonstration of a particular type of a proof. It's not necessarily how it's not exactly how either of these cryptocurrencies work, but it's
well, you'd have to have more involved in it. We'd have to wait to upload things and secure transmissions and all that. But the essential key, the basic character of it, I did capture. And I think this example actually is a very good example, is in that it shows the basic idea behind it, and doesn't do anything else than that. Yes, it's not practical, and that actually making one using small numbers instead of big, huge numbers is kind of interesting, and it could have certain implications here. Like if you did find something along these lines where it can just be cranked out quickly, then you're getting around the energy problem, which we've got to stop Bitcoin. That's just having money consume as much. Having a cyber currency consume as much energy as a medium-sized country, not small, medium-sized country, is not okay.
And there's really no reason for it. They do have other proofs, like for example the Merkle tree proof, which is just using the latest, because of its structure, that that if you prove the latest transactions, it means that all the previous transactions were correct. You don't have to do an exhaustive validation of the entire chain. So that's one thing. There's many different approaches, and it's certainly possible to turn this into a much more efficient method than is now. It's just a crime against humanity to let Bitcoin continue on this energy wasting track.
But nobody who's got any is going to agree with you.
Well, it doesn't provide value. Essentially, it's not that using this energy somehow provides value. It doesn't. It could just as well be changed from proof of work to proof of stake or something else, and continue with the Bitcoin as a currency. Have no downsides to it. So it's really kind of criminal that they're not changing it at this point. And
but I'm just saying, who would make them change? We don't have any entity that.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's nobody who's really forcing them. And the guy who came up with the Zcash, which is a privacy coin, for example, did mention that it would be time to convert the Bitcoin and other currencies that are using proof of work into a proof of stake or something else, and why are they not doing it? I don't know. It's just the inertia, I guess. So that's pretty much it. Yeah,
it's not in anybody's interest who's got it to really make the change.
Right.
I mean, they justify it anyway. I mean, I watched one particular video where a person was just going on and on about the energy thing, where if we could use burn the methane from that's vented off oil wells, it's just vented off into the atmosphere anyway. Use that and mine coin with that.
It makes no sense.
It's a ridiculous thing. I mean,
right.
But the point is, somebody takes it seriously, and the reason people take it seriously, it's because it's in their interest to do so.
Yeah, because people get lost in the detail and in the complexities, and like this is like if you want to get into cryptocurrencies and you're starting to invest, you have to learn about exchanges, about a digital wallet, a crypto wallet. You have to figure out how to trade it back and forth, how to secure it. It's like a whole thing that you have to. There's a learning curve involved. And once you're done with all of that, you don't even think of why it's like that or what is the purpose of crypto in general. You just get lost in the details. So that's why we wanted to cover this. I hope we've provided a little bit of space for thought, and that you will look at it further on your end. It's as I said, it's a little bit complex, but this is something we do have to tackle because of it big implications. So that's pretty much what we wanted to do here. Anything else you wanted to add, Keith?
No, I just like to reiterate my point. My interest in this is that, here we have technology, we have raw technology, and we have people reacting to technology. And, years ago, I got interested in this problem of technology controlling people and vice versa, because, there's so many things that we do in life that don't really make sense when we stop and think about them, but we really never stop and think about them, and specifically, the energy and the population growth and the using of resources, and pretending that something will always come along to save us no matter what jam we get ourselves into. That one thing about technology, you brought it up, the Church of Monero, and they had a picture of the buddy Jesus in there, and I like the guy, but hey, this religion, we look at technology like it's magical, like it's going to solve all our problems. And we are technical, that is our nature, to be technical. I don't deny that. But here we have crypto specifically, and I think I'm ranting too long, and I was only going to make a point here. And my point is that nobody's looking at the actual implications of this. All they're looking at is, can this make me money? Can I get rich? And what arguments can I come up with to support this? Can I say that it doesn't really use as much money if we do much energy if we do this instead of that, or all sorts of juggling going on. I'm not talking about you, Amos. You're only putting out the other side, making a good show with me here. But just across the web, it's all over the place. It's just being celebrated as the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I don't see it.
And
it's just another unquestioned technology that's going to get us into trouble.
And we don't know if it's going to provide anything in the future. We don't know if it's going to be a kind of a rock of stability where the fiat currencies fail. If that happens, it might.
Well, that's another thing, fiat currencies, as progressive to anybody who's, we all get into fiat currencies, that's like, kind of 101, oligarchy 101. You learn about fiat concern, and you understand that, hey, this is kind of messed up, and it really should change our system, because this system was set up to provide for infinite growth on a finite planet, which was fine when we had an infinite planet. But when we reached a point where we saw the limit, that's not true anymore. But we have to change it. But it's not happening. So right. Yeah.
All right, and with that, we'll leave you guys. I hope we shed some light, and you'll share your thoughts. Please, if you got anything out of this discussion, share it on your social media, and we'll see you soon. See you on Saturday with our No Joke program.
Yeah, no joke. We're looking for news.
Yep. Bye, guys. Bye-bye. Guys, bye-bye.